So locked down, we're not allowed
Good
to-
evening.
Wait.
and- Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Stow, August 22nd, 2023 Select Board Meeting. We will start off with public comment, if there is any. Public comment is allowed for a maximum of 2 minutes, and you will please identify yourself, name and address first.
And raise a virtual hand.
Raise your virtual hand if you would like to speak, and it's for anything that is not already on the agenda. Seeing none, we'll move on to board member comments if there are any.
I don't have any.
None, great.
Nope.
So, let's have the town administrator's report, please.
Alrighty. First, I would like to thank the Friends of the Council on Aging for providing the funds for a table and patio outside of the Pompasitic Community Center. It looks great for those of you who have not seen it. And I would like to thank Doug Hyde for spearheading the work on the town's end. I think it will be very heavily utilized. The table and chairs are really nice. It looks really great. I would like to thank Representative Kate Hogan for her continued support of Stow and the installation of firefighting cisterns in town. She was able to earmark additional funding through this upcoming budget to help with the installation of cisterns throughout the town in the most critical areas. She previously got us $300,000 and now has another $150,000 to continue this endeavor, which is fantastic. A reminder that the feedback period for the Board of Health's private well regulations ends on August 31st. Additionally, the comment period for outdoor well use restrictions is open through September 30th. If you want to send in comments on either, the information is on our website under news and notices, and they are taking them in writing through a dedicated email address. And lastly, we found out that the folks organizing the Assabet Craft Beer and Food Truck Festival have changed some of the details since you approved their license. They've added additional alcohol vendors and some food trucks that were not previously approved. So I wanted to ask the board if you would allow me to authorize those because we will not have a meeting prior to, and they've made some changes. So I wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, sure, okay with it.
Okay. So as long as they meet all the requirements.
I'll just ask one question, they're all in the same vein of what we've approved already.
Yes, you've approved beer and they're bringing in wine and.
Oh, yeah.
So the food trucks, we're still working with the Board of Health because they're not licensed, the ones that they want to bring in. We have told them in the future, they need to have all of these in before they apply for the permit here because that's what you're the licensing authority. But I would ask that in this case, given the time frame, we don't have another meeting, so.
Do we need to take a vote on that, or do you?
No, I mean, I think if you're okay with that, then I will just proceed and make sure that they meet all the requirements.
Give A for enthusiasm.
And that is all.
Great, thank you. So let's talk about the special town meeting warrant. We have the final warrant in front of us. And we've seen it before, and there are no particular changes that.
There are a few minimal changes, if I may.
Yeah, please.
There are really 3 changes from the draft version, and they involve Articles 9, 14, and 16. If you will recall, Articles 9 and 14 are fairly similar with the list of select board appointments.
Yeah.
One would make the change that to consolidate the highway and cemetery into a DPW, and one did not include those. Town council, because all of the charter changes have to go to the ballot, has recommended that only one article be voted on at town meeting. So if Article 3 passes, then Article 9 would be tabled, and we would only act upon Article 14. If Article 3 does not pass, we would act upon Article 9, and we would table Article 14. So I've added some comments in there to identify that those would be tabled if, depending on how Article 3 plays out. Because if they both went to the ballot, then whichever one got a higher vote would be the one that is implemented, and we don't want that. We want to stick with the way we plan to move forward. So those 2 changes. And then and sorry, it was Article 17. Friday afternoon, right before the deadline, we received a citizen's petition. However, the citizen's petition actually is not legally valid. The petition is to amend the Stow zoning bylaw to add a section titled Firearms Business Zoning, but then did not provide a bylaw that they would like to implement. So it can be looked at as a non-binding resolution if town meeting were to act upon it, but there's nothing. It doesn't actually implement a bylaw, it doesn't amend the bylaw. But they did meet the 100 signature requirement. They have been certified by the registrar, so we are legally required to include it in the warrant. And because it does state to amend the zoning bylaw, the planning board will need to hold a hearing on it in accordance with chapter 40, so they will hold a public hearing. But again, there's nothing quite for them to act upon either, because there's no legal basis in the article itself. So those are the only changes since the draft version that you saw.
Great.
So I don't know if the board wanted to support any, or if you just wanted to vote on the warrant, but I will leave it to you now.
Question, comment?
Question about that citizens petition.
Yes.
So if somebody came in to the town meeting, they could provide an amendment to the,
They can't provide an amendment because the town wouldn't have an opportunity to know what the amendment is to vote on it. So you can't amend outside the scope, and the scope doesn't have any bylaw change.
Got it.
So, again, it could be sort of a nudge to the planning board if town meeting were to vote favorably that says we want this to happen, and then they could work on, but again, it's still non-binding. So even if town meeting votes to approve that article, planning board could decide yes, no.
oh, okay.
And is the idea that the planning board would then, or someone else would have to put forth a bylaw that was like very specific to, like, so something like that could happen?
Yes, it absolutely
But
could, just
not
like,
in this,
correct, just like we did in the spring.
Yeah.
You could put a bylaw, but you need an actual bylaw. You
Right,
need the
right, right.
language of the bylaw and what you want to
Substance,
amend. All this is doing is actually adding a title to that bylaw. It doesn't add any substance to it.
okay.
So yes,
It's the toe dipping of the beginning of the discussion.
Okay.
yes.
Other questions or comments? Okay. I will take a motion to approve the warrant.
I move to approve the September 18th, 2023 special town meeting warrant as presented at this meeting.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Let's see. I'm just gonna plow ahead until I know that our school project representatives are here, right? Let's look at the Lake Boon Water Carnival permit. So,
Just full disclosure, I am gonna be participating in the food area because I hold the certification for allergens and ServSafe food manager. I do not receive any remuneration of any kind, monetarily or anything else.
Great.
I even pay for my own burgers.
Thank you.
thank you. Oh, good, David's on.
Yeah,
Hey, would you like to say a few words about the carnival?
yeah, this is an event that has been going on for over 100 years on the lake at various times and various places, but it's been a wonderful possibility to get the community together, and we invite people off the lake as well in Stow and Hudson to come and enjoy the Friday night lighting of the lake and a music boat, which can be observed from Town Beach. And then there are events at Pine Bluffs all day on Saturday. And it's very much like what goes on there during any weekend, except it's a little more organized and a little more community oriented. So that's really why it is an event that needs the permit to use the town beach and fields. Although the use is very much like what is done the rest of the summer.
Nice. My reading was that all your paperwork is in order. So, any questions or comments from the board?
No, it's a great event.
Yeah.
Can I ask one question, David? Can you address, is it just the normal parking that's over at Lake Boon? We live on the other side of town, and so I know that sometimes the parking gets a little tight there. Do you have additional parking?
It's the normal parking there, and actually, we have fewer cars there than when there's a big soccer event.
Okay, great,
Yeah, parking is not a problem.
perfect, thank you.
Great. Any other questions or comments?
I've attended this, I think, just about every year for the last 20 years. And I have to say, it is an event that is truly enjoyed by all when they go. Big kids, as well as little kids. I'll throw you in the pie eating contest.
And we appreciate JT's participation all the way through, yeah.
Okay, I will take a motion to grant the permit.
I move to grant the special event permit for the Lake Boon Water Carnival to be held at Pine Bluff Recreation Area at Lake Boon on Saturday, September 2nd from 8 a.m. until 4:30 p.m. with the understanding that there will be no amplified music during the Lake Boon quiet hours.
Second?
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Okay. Thank you, David. I hope it's a
Thank you.
great event. Hope it goes well. So we have now we have Kirk Downing and other people to present the high school project.
Chair, thank you for allowing us to appear this evening. I much appreciate it. We do have a presentation for you this evening. Joining me is the chair of our school committee, Ms. Viverito, as well as some other members of our committee, Mr. Nicholson, Ms. Kendall are here, as well as our communications specialist, Bridget Hannigan. And so I have some things to present to you, but let's first begin with a video that describes the overall scope of the project. And then I have a slide presentation to offer that talks about the financing of the project. So having just done this in the town of Lancaster literally minutes ago, let me re-cue everything. If you'll give me just a moment here, Madam Chair.
Of course.
Okay, you should be able to see my screen at this point.
Yep.
Great.
Kirk, is there sound? Because we're not getting any, if there is.
Excuse me, you're not hearing the sound?
Mm-mm.
No.
Oh, I'm hearing it completely on my end.
Did you enable sound when sharing your screen?
On the bottom left there?
No, that's my screen.
That's yours, okay.
Okay. I have to enable the sound percent on my screen, just a moment. Okay, I need some direction on where to find the enable button.
Can he just send you the thing?
Kirk, is it the same video that you sent me last week?
It is, Denise.
Okay.
Oh, I have it, thank you very much. I just got it, and Regional High School.
There we go.
Can you hear that now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll start it from the beginning. Thank you. Today we stand at a critical juncture that will shape the future of education for the children in our towns of Bolton, Lancaster, and Stow. The decision we face revolves around the future of the high school learning experience, a decision that requires us to consider the state of our current aging building and the opportunities that lie ahead. Let us take a moment to reflect on how far we've come since the opening of Neshoba Regional High School in 1961. Back then, the economy centered around industrial production, and our educational system was designed to prepare our students for jobs of that era. However, times have changed dramatically, and we find ourselves in a rapidly evolving world, driven by technology, digitalization, and sustainability. World Economic Forum's The Future of Jobs report emphasizes the importance of technology adoption and the growing need for cognitive skills such as critical thinking and complex problem solving. It is our moral and ethical responsibility to ensure that our students are equipped with the skills and competencies necessary to navigate this ever-changing landscape. A new Neshoba Regional High School presents an opportunity to meet these needs. It will be designed to prepare our students for a future where they will be leaders in technology, sustainability, artificial intelligence, and more. This state-of-the-art school will provide a learning environment that fosters innovation, collaboration, and creativity, nurturing the critical skills our students need for success in the 21st century. Education is the cornerstone of progress, and a new high school will invigorate our educators, inspire our students, and provide educational stability for generations to come. By investing in learning and on-the-job training, we can ensure that our students are prepared to meet the challenges of a rapidly changing world. Moreover, a new high school will not only benefit our students, but also enhance the overall development of our three towns. It will serve as a multifunctional space for community use, hosting events, performances, and workshops that enrich our cultural experiences. The Media Center will become a hub for information exchange, promoting digital literacy for all ages. Additionally, recreation facilities like pickleball courts will encourage physical activity and social interaction, promoting a healthy lifestyle for both students and community members. The new high school will also be designed to accommodate the needs of our seniors in our community. By offering lifelong learning programs and providing spaces for community gatherings, we can ensure that our seniors remain engaged and connected. To build a new high school, we have the support of the Massachusetts School Building Authority, a state-funded grant organization that participates in funding school construction projects. Our towns have already passed a warrant article to support the feasibility study, which has identified structural and mechanical issues that local maintenance cannot address. We have considered various options, including base repair, addition renovation, as well as new construction. The preferred solution is new construction, and it best meets the criteria of the MSBA and provides a modern learning environment for our students. The total cost of construction is estimated to be $241,714,926, with the MSBA supporting $64,811,362 of the project, leaving an estimated taxpayer share of $176,903,564. As we move forward, let us keep in mind the accreditation standards set forth by the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, emphasizing the need for safe, secure, and adequately sized spaces that support student learning and the curriculum. Our decision today will have a profound impact on the education and future of our children and community as a whole. Let us choose wisely, invest in the potential of our students, and ensure that Neshoba Regional High School remains a beacon of progress and excellence for decades to come. As we move forward on this transformative journey, let us embrace the challenges and seize the opportunities. Together we can create a bright future for our children and a legacy of excellence for generations to come. Thank you for your attention, and may we move forward together on this transformative journey for our community and its future generations. So it's at this point that I was hopeful our Finance and Operations Director, Mr. Mulcairn, could join us. However, he is currently presenting to the Bolton Advisory Committee along with our OPM, Ms. Marianne Williams. So Ms. Viverito and I will do our best job to give you the information you need tonight, knowing they wish they could be here and may arrive at their meeting. So, Madam Chair, this slide deck, and to the entire committee and to the community, is to give you a sense of the cost of the project as it relates to each of our towns.
This is not the one we have.
And so to give that a little bit of context, I want to remind the committee, and this was outlined in some previous board briefs, multiple options were considered as solutions for this, for the needs at our high school. Option one was the base repair that was mentioned in the video, cost of upwards to $120 million. It's important to note that cost would not be shared by the MSBA. That option would be entirely on the people of our towns. Option 3A was an addition renovation. It would take 5 to 6 years, and it would be at a cost that is frankly more expensive than new construction. And it's mostly because building the school while students are in it required lots of extra expenses, like possibly bringing in modular classrooms and the extended timeline for escalating construction costs, leaving us with new construction options, of which our building committee voted unanimously, an ultimate recommendation of the school committee, of which they voted unanimously, option 4D for the submittal for our initial design. And I think what's important as well is that our community gave overwhelming feedback that option 4D was the option that was most desirable to them. So the base repair, you can see this includes a lot of the elements that need to be replaced. And I won't go through all of them specifically here, only to say the $120 million would simply correct these items and give us the exact same school that we have today with the exact same layout, and does not address the educational plan, nor does it address the recommendations in the NEASC report, New England Association of Schools and Colleges, recommending that we address the space issues of our school by our decennial accreditation, which is coming up in 2025. So the base repair is not an option in terms of looking at what the accreditation of our school could possibly be, because it doesn't address those. The addition renovation, as I shared, was too time cumbersome and was more expensive than the new option. I think what's important to note here, that if we went with an addition renovation option, it would take approximately 6 years of time, meaning 3 graduation classes would go through Neshoba Regional High School, with the building being under construction their entire school experience. So option 4D, new construction, is the option we landed on. And you'll notice it provided the least amount of disruption to the site, where the new building can be constructed while students are attending the current school, only disrupted to where the current baseball field lies. And that baseball field would be reconstructed on the area that essentially goes from the gymnasiums of the school through the auditoriums and up through the current parking lot. So after going through the process and the design process that was submitted to the MSBA in June, our committee on August 2nd voted to incur debt of $241,714,926. We estimate the MSBA reimbursement to be near $65 million at $64,793,451, leading the taxpayer contribution to $176.9 million. The estimated totals per town here, these percentages are based upon the capital assessment percentages as outlined in the regional agreement, and that is based off of high school enrollment, actual students from each town that enter into the building to attend school. And so as the school building's debt is assessed over time, numbers will fluctuate based upon how enrollment at the high school fluctuates. Historically, we have hovered around a third, with Stow in recent years coming closer, Bolton and Lancaster, than they had been previously. I want to talk a little bit about the reimbursement information and the MSBA participation. You remember, this committee may remember as I presented in April about the MSBA's contribution, the percentage of contribution. It was at 53.09% of eligible costs. That's called the base rate. Since then, it's been elevated to 55.09, and that's based upon some of the green energy work that is going into the construction of this high school. But you can see the effective rate, what they're really participating in for the total project, is at 26.8%. There are some caps, like for instance, furniture, fixture, and equipment is capped at $2,400 a student, when on average it's $4,000 and even more. We budgeted $4,000 per student for furniture and equipment. But there's other cap fees and contingencies that are also have to be included in the project that are not reimbursable. But I'm going to point you to the building cost limit per square foot as the most critical factor in why we can't actualize that 55% rate for reimbursable eligible costs. And that is because there's a ceiling of 393 square feet allowed by the MSBA. And in 2018, when we first entered our first initial application for statement of interest to the MSBA, Attleboro High School that same year had their project approved. The cap was $333 a square foot, but their estimated cost of construction was they ultimately built that building at $550 a square foot of the total cost of the project. Inflation has impacted the construction industry to the point to where the cost of our project has escalated to over $1,150. And the reason for that is based upon all the things that are happening in the construction sector. Our project and Attleboro's project have the same OPM, the same designers, and the cost estimating was based on like materials of both environments. So the design and the spaces that we've chosen are not extravagant for what the educational program is providing. We are in this squeeze where the MSBA has not raised the square footage ceiling at the same rate that the cost of construction has gone up. So had we been in that 2018 cycle, the square foot percentage would have been around 60%, which exceeds that 55 we ultimately have here. Today, it's 34%, which you can see is 20 points below what the base rate is. And I want you to know that I've shared this information with MSBA officials as well, and they understand the pinches that we're in, but this is all driven by state statute. And so there isn't a lever and mechanism that we can press that can change the MSBA participation rate. They are a grant organization and they take our project under consideration and ultimately say, here's what we will contribute toward your project. And they are meeting on August 30th to take that vote. So when we look at the key understandings of what the cost to our taxpayers would be, these estimates are based on the fiscal assumptions of the current markets. The finalized cost of the building won't happen until the end as we use a construction management risk process. And the debt assessment over the life of the bond will be determined by enrollment within the regional agreement. So our cash flows and the budget have been provided to our financial advisors, and they have provided in turn that their recommendation to our bond advisory group, which consists of our 3 town administrators or their representative, as well as representative from our town FinCom and advisory boards, as well as district officials. So in those meetings, we talked about 3 options. The first option A is bonding the entire project at the front of the project. Option B is splitting the bonds over the course of building and drawing the cash as we need it throughout the project. And option C is taking annual notes on interest and wrapping that all together in a singular bond at the conclusion of construction. For tonight's purpose, and to help the taxpayers understand what the estimated cost of the project would be in terms of their assessment, I'm going to show you numbers based on option A, bonding at the front of the project. So this is based at, as I said, the start of construction. It's based off the town property tax assessments from FY24 with an assumption of municipal bond interest rates of 4 to 4.5%. Our advisors are telling us now that they're funding like municipal projects with our rating of AA plus, just under 4% right now. So these should give us a conservative range there. And we cannot exceed a 30-year term. So these are based on 30-year terms. And the numbers of enrollment are based off of the FY24 enrollment numbers, which is attendance on October 1st, 2020. So when we look at that, we take the median residential assessment for each of our towns. And you can see the median residential assessment for the town of Stow recently was determined at $640,760. And so when you look at that cost, you can see we've broken it down by year, month, week, and day. In meeting with some representatives from our Council on Aging, they asked that it be broken down that way because people receive their income in different ways. So having it by year and by day, they can relate better to week and month. So we've added all 4 of those here so that people can choose how they best relate and can understand the cost of the project and what the impact of the project will have to their households. So the annual increase for Stow is estimated to be between 1,300, 1,500. And, as we get to those places, that'll all be handled by the town administrators because the towns that actually assess the taxpayers, it's the school committee that incurs the debt and then assesses the town the same way we do the current capital projects that we're spending now. So that'll conclude that portion of the presentation, Madam Chair, and I hope I did Mr. Mulcairn service here in presenting the numbers, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have questions?
We'll have a few.
Go ahead.
Can you share with us what value engineering was done to try to lower the cost of the project?
Excuse me, I heard, tell us what value engineering was done?
Yeah, can you share with us what value engineering was done to try to lower the cost of the project? We're talking
Yeah,
a $250 million project here.
Right, thank you. No, I was just having a difficult time hearing over my computer result. In terms of how that was done, I wish we had our construction manager or OPM with us at the moment, but the project was based upon materials that are going to be a 50-year solution. And as we look at the cost of the project, we look at the minimum required spaces in and what the MSBA will reimburse. So for instance, a standard classroom is 850 square feet. And so we didn't exceed that, and we maintain that. I know Ms. Kendall works in this industry. So Ms. Kendall, if you want to, and has been a part of our working group that worked on this as well. So I invite Ms. Kendall to answer your first.
Hi, yes, I work at a similar firm. It's actually in my name. I couldn't take it out. I didn't want it to seem like a conflict of interest, but there has been a lot of work done to identify materials in the building that are the most cost effective, and as Superintendent Downing mentioned, will meet that 50-year design standard, which is what we seek for a school. Unlike a residential, we really want this to be long lasting. Additionally, the size of the building, the programmatic sizes are all to fit within the minimums or to meet what our educational plan is. All of these estimated costs are, based on sort of that standard, and what we're presenting at schematic design really wants to hit what we think is going to be a reasonable budget and not to exceed. I think there's been a very well thought out, concentrated effort to keep this project on budget and reasonable, but still provide that state of the art educational facility that we want to provide for our students, so that we're bringing in the building that our community deserves.
So then can you discuss why the district is exceeding the $1,200 per student allowance for technology and the FF&E?
I'll chime in and then I can let others. The $1,200 allowance for FF&E and technology is very low. That's meeting a sort of minimum. If you compare that to, if I can, RIDE, which is the MSBA equivalent in Rhode Island, their standard for contribution is somewhere between $3,500 to $4,000 a student. So that just shows you the sort of how MSBA has a lot of schools are trying to support and has to divvy out that fund separately. It by no means is the MSBA saying you should be able to do this for $1,200. They're saying that's what we're able to contribute.
Okay, so then,
Courtney,
I-
and Leah wanted to
And to be
comment.
clear, the MSBA contributes $2,400 per student, and this budget includes a $4,000 per student allowance.
So Leah has also a comment on this. Go ahead, Leah.
Thank you so much. So hi, everybody. Thanks for having us. I just wanted to say that the value engineering phase of every construction project is usually during the construction process. And so we did have this conversation at our meeting the other night. Our design team or our construction management team, our owner's project manager, they were in charge of the Minuteman building. And I found it really interesting that that building came in a little bit under budget and under time. And so I did ask the question, when you are very good at your job and you're able to bring the cost down on the final day, what happens to that money that you've ultimately value engineered out? And the answer is it goes back to the towns.
Leo, that building was not done properly.
I'm sorry,
That's all right.
you can't, you can't just chime in.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I would just say that that is probably going to be an ongoing process to try to continue to work through the budget as we've chosen the construction management at risk process. It's going to be kind of a unique system that I think Kristen can probably speak to more, but that is going to be an ongoing effort.
Great, thank you.
I have a question when they have a second.
Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, you okay?
yeah, I
Great,
know.
perfect. Leah or Kirk, could you speak to option 3A and whether or not any MSBA funding would be available for that? I just want to make sure that everyone's clear on why the decision was made in option 4 and not option 3A. So could you speak to whether or not any reimbursement would have been possible in 3A?
Now, I'll be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Reimbursement would be eligible in option 3A.
Okay.
But when you look at option 3A, that project would have come in approximately $30 million higher than the current project, and it would have taken approximately 5 to 6 years of construction as opposed to 2 to 3 years of construction. So those are the two biggest factors of why 3A was determined not to be an option.
Sorry, so my second question, part of that is, do we not, I understand that it would have cost more to do 3A, but do we not know were the numbers ever run to figure out what the MSBA would have been able to reimburse?
Yeah, I should say, I don't know exactly what that'd be. I would have to imagine the percentage would be about the same, only because the square footage ceiling is still the same square footage ceiling, and with a higher cost project, I think we'd be at risk of less participation. That's just, sort of my rationale thinking. Ms. Kendall might be able to provide some light on this.
Yes, by no means would the percentage of what the MSBA would be a guarantee that they could contribute more. It would still be your ineligibles and what all those factors that Kirk outlined of what brings that percentage down would still apply. to 3A. So proportionally, you would still see, it would still be more expensive than 4A, although they would still contribute.
Okay, that was what I was looking for.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you. Anybody else before JT gets another one? Go ahead.
So I'd like to know specifically what makes up the $104 million total of ineligible construction costs, and that's per my calculations. Why is there so much ineligible? And when you factor it in with the ineligible costs, the MSBA reimbursement rate is only at 26.8. Again, I'm having difficulty justifying this project with $104 million of ineligible construction costs. I'm licensed as an unrestricted construction supervisor, have dealt with multi-million-dollar projects throughout my career, and this just doesn't make sense because I've not been able to get specifics on the ineligible construction costs themselves.
Yeah, so I can tell you right now, going back to the presentation earlier, the $393 square foot ceiling, the maximum percentage for the project we could have got out of that is 34%. So that alone drops us from 55% to 34%. So that's a 20%, 21% drop right there. The other cost is there are almost 10,000 square feet that are ineligible square footage that are in the building. And these are in 4 general areas: auditorium, gymnasium spaces, vocational ed spaces, and the technology spaces, the spaces most closely tied to our educational plan. And so those also, so for instance, the stage, the reimbursement square footage for the size of the stage would have been about the size of the stage at the Florence Story School, which is half the size of our current stage. To maintain the size of our current stage, we needed to exceed that limit. When we look at our current gym spaces, and we have multiple gyms right now, we're going to have 3 athletic spaces in the new building by having a fitness center, by having our rad space, and having the gymnasium that has seating for 1,000 students, which allows us to get the entire student body into one location. That's where a portion of that square footage as well. Those are the big major factors. The others are things like site costs. When the site costs, you're only allowed eligible up to 10% of the construction costs. Anything over 10% is not eligible. So there are up to possibly $8 million in exceeding site costs from the last report I saw. So it's those caps that all contribute ultimately to that portion. And it's not because there's extra spaces or extra rooms that are being added. All of our classrooms are eligible and they don't exceed those spaces. And just that ceiling, that cap of 393 reduces the actual rate dramatically. And that is a flaw, and it's a product of the escalating cost of construction over the last 5 years without that ceiling keeping up. If this was 2018, that ratio would be about a 60% ratio, and we would be much higher in our percentage. But we just have to be here at a day at a time where that's just not the case.
I think Leah wants to respond.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys, again. I know that the reimbursement rate is a little confusing, but if you were to go on the MSBA website, you can kind of look at the matrix of all the projects that have been funded since the beginning of the MSBA. And if we just look at the center school project, the reimbursement rate for Stow at that time was about 51%, but ultimately the effective reimbursement rate eventually came down to 43%. And so there's always going to be a differential, there always has been a differential between the reimbursement that you think you're going to get because of your socioeconomic status and then the effective reimbursement rate that the MSBA ultimately extends to the town. And so, and then that square foot cap that Kirk was just talking about is really a significant factor.
Thank you.
So if you extrapolate that gap that Ms. Viverito just spoke to, and you put on the 21% drop, you get the delta between the 26.8% to the 55.09.
Hector?
Couple of questions. Number one, you mentioned some deadline about 2025 and certification. What happens then if we don't do nothing?
Yeah, it is a decennial accreditation, so they will come in and they'll ask us to do a self-study, and then so we go through our organization and assess ourselves according to the NIAS standards, and then they will come back after reviewing that and recommend any corrective actions, and then make the determination on if they're accrediting our high school. That is something that's not in our control. We look for that accreditation because it supports our students as they look life beyond Neshoba. And so if we were to lose that accreditation, I can't tell you with certainty what would happen. That would be speculation. But that's a roll of the dice in terms of how desirable would our high school be to families moving into the region. And what would that say to colleges in terms of the students that are graduating from our school? We have a strong school with a strong history of educating fine students. So I think that could help carry us to schools and colleges post graduation from high school. But I can't tell you that with certainty. That's a risk.
So if I understand correctly, right now, our building, the current high school building, we have a 50-50 shot of not being accredited in 2025 if we don't do anything?
Yeah, I mean, that's difficult for me to equate it that way. But we were put on notice, and then in 2017, the response that was given back to them is that from the space study work that was done from the Space Study Committee 2015, 2016, they recommended engaging with the MSBA to do the corrective action necessary in the building. And that was cited in the response report in 2017 that we were seeking that out as a potential solution to the areas that they were concerned about.
Can I ask one follow-up question?
Yep.
So with all the percentages that have increased and dropped from the MSBA, what's the risk of waiting a couple of years for the MSBA to correct itself and get a higher increase, and then we start doing the construction?
Well, I think I can share with that, and I'll ask our committee members to also join in. But as I've illustrated the last few years, the escalating costs of construction have far outpaced the rate at which MSBA is increasing their participation. And so I would anticipate that gap would continue to grow larger and larger and larger. We're in a new day to where the comparables of school projects that pre this inflation period to post this inflation period are frankly working themselves into non-comparables unless the legislation is changed and how the MSBA funds schools. But again, I think I'll turn it back to our chair, Ms. Figueredo, and then perhaps Ms. Kendall to add some information.
Thank you. Please go ahead. Leah?
Sure. So just to speak to the timeline a little bit more, I think that it's really important for all residents to understand that when the MSBA comes back in 2025, let's imagine that this vote fails, which I hope it doesn't. If this vote fails, then in 2025, we run the risk of getting on to probation, because that is typically the next step in the accreditation process. And my expectation is that we would be put on probation, similar to other cities across the Commonwealth, including our neighbor Maynard. Maynard went on accreditation, probation, before they took their vote. And so they had a much greater incentive. It was certain that their school was going to lose accreditation if they did not pass the vote. And so at this point in time, I feel like a lot of people are thinking, well, why don't we just risk it? Maybe we won't get on probation and eventually lose accreditation. But I think that that is a risk I'm not willing to take because the MSBA process, they would eject us from their system. It could potentially take us another 15 years to get to another vote. And in 15 years' time, the current building is going to require so much of our resources and fail to educate our kids after another 15 years in the modern age. And so we are running a real risk of the accreditation cycle hitting us 2 more times before we can get back on the MSBA's good list. And we could lose our accreditation. And I know for a fact that if we become the only city or town or region in this state without accreditation, that is problematic for us. That is problematic for property taxes. There's no doubt in my mind that people will look elsewhere on where to sink all of their money into real estate. Because a region without an accredited high school, although we're not certain that colleges would turn our kids down, I know that I would not want to risk that as a home buyer. And so the timeline is very tricky for us. We do not want to forget that.
Thank you. Chris?
Thank you. Just from an MSBA standpoint and our eligibility and being a part of their reimbursement program, if we were to fail in this vote, it would put us at the very bottom of their list. It's not that we can just come back in a year or two. We fail, we can keep trying to get back into the eligibility, but it will, as Ms. Viverito said, probably take a good 10 to 15 years. If this were to fail, we will be looked at as a no-faith district, and the MSBA will look to invest in districts that are going to pass their projects and continue moving forward. It's not just a matter of let's just wait a year or two. That's not really an option. Thank you.
Other questions?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Do you have an official document stating that the district will lose accreditation if this project does not pass?
No, there's no document that says we will lose accreditation. What they did is they put us on notice that we didn't meet those standards. The standards were rewritten also in 2020, and we will have to meet those standards for them to consider accreditation. Ultimately, it's up to them to make that decision. So there isn't a document that says you're going to lose it, which is why I'm very careful to say we're at risk of losing, not certain.
Kirk, you alluded to being put on notice. Is there a document that says that we are being put on notice?
Yeah, the NIASC report is included, I believe, Ms. Viverito, on the school building committee webpage in the document section.
Okay, I'm just gonna ask you, cause I don't wanna dig through the website, but could someone just send that to our town administrator to send it to us, just to have?
Happy to do that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Great.
Leah, do you have another comment?
Yeah, the other thing that I wanted to make really clear is that the existing conditions study that was done on the current building has identified several items that need fixing. They have largely been kept at bay by our fantastic facilities team who's worked tirelessly to keep this building in working order. If this vote were to fail, we would start to see many of those items start to hit the warrants. For starters, the building needs a new roof. That was identified. It needs a brand new HVAC system, which is incredibly expensive. It also needs doors to be replaced because it's thought that the rusting that's occurring is probably not going to allow them to latch for much longer. So I think that one thing that our residents need to understand is that this building is beyond its useful life. We have, I would argue, kicked this can down the road as far as we can. And at this point, the building is going to cost us millions of dollars no matter what we do. And so I think the question that we're asking people is, what do you want to get for your millions of dollars? Do you want to get the same exact building that is bandaged up, that is still not meeting the educational program, that still has outdated labs that cannot host chemistry laboratories, so that the kids at Neshoba don't have those technological and innovative experiences that all of their peers around the Commonwealth do? Or do we want a new state-of-the-art facility that's going to serve every single person in this district, from the youngest to the oldest? I would argue that the latter is probably more favorable, albeit expensive. So we recognize the challenge that exists here, but we are in what I would argue is a no-no vote situation, because this is going to cost us one way or the other.
Thank you.
Nothing else.
Madam
You're done. Yep.
Madam Chair, I have to respectfully disagree with that last statement. I feel that if we looked at the option of renovation, at the 100 million, 110 million range versus what is being proposed now, you would have a completely newly renovated building. The only question would be the possible size of the classrooms, and I've done my research on this. There's not been one school district, municipality that has ever not been accredited because of classroom size. It has not happened. So my view on this is that option really should be looked at. And even if all the towns have to pay for it, it is still a good deal less money than what it is for the new construction of the buildings. I've got a number of constituents in this town that have come to me with real concern across the board of the cost of this and the increase. Currently, about 49 cents of every tax dollar goes toward the Neshoba district. This project, by calculation, will increase that just about to 60 cents per every dollar. And if you add that in with the Minuteman, we're now talking about 70 cents of every dollar that is put out goes to Neshoba and the Minuteman. I'm just saying, I really have major problems with this, and I have to say, many constituents have come to me with major problems and issues with this.
Here.
Leah?
I just wanted to ask a quick clarifying question. I think that what was just said is that the renovation option is the one that is $110 million.
Yes.
Is that right? So it's actually, I think the $110 million is what we call the base repair that gets no reimbursement. And so that would actually be completely on the taxpayers, and it simply brings the building up to code. The renovation option is actually, the total cost is somewhere between $254 and $264 million. And so I just wanted to be super clear about that. That is, the $110 million option gets zero reimbursement and is not, it's only a base repair. It just brings the building up to code.
Got it.
Chris.
Yeah. Chris?
I just wanted to highlight that a base repair, and I think that this is important to factor in, and while cost is extremely important, I think your voice is very well heard, and I know a lot of people are concerned about that, and it's a real concern. A base repair is purely going to bandage the building we have. We are pouring tons of our taxpayer money into limping along a hurting building. We are not providing our students with any additional educational support. It's purely keeping our building functional. So that tons of money we'd be pouring into this really hurting building just isn't really supporting our students. Is that what we want for our town to say, that we're willing to bandage this building and keep it going and not support our students and give them that state-of-the-art educational space that they deserve?
Again, Madam Chair?
Ask the students.
Okay, so I just wanna consider that we have
You gotta stop.
an agenda and that this is, we're not deciding this tonight. We're getting a report on the costs.
Okay.
So that we can understand what we're gonna see at special town meeting. I think, we do have a number of other discussions to have, and we should save some breath for those too.
Thank you.
Fair enough.
Do you have any comments?
My only comment is if you're taking any public comment on this matter.
Seeing as we have people in the room, I don't know if you were here to ask questions on this. If there are people on Zoom, I would say briefly, again, I think we've had a lot of discussion already but I'd like to hear you if you've.
I'd like to make a comment. I thought citizen comment was before the whole meeting started, but maybe I missed that, I don't know.
Please state your name and address.
Andrew Martin, 101 Sudbury Road.
Thank you.
In Stow, naturally. How many of us completely tear down our house every 60 or 65 years and rebuild? Not many. They say that it's just, if you fix it up, I don't know what our maintenance budget is every year in Neshoba Regional High School. I had 4 of my children go through there. The last one this past year just finished. And I point blank asked him, how do you feel about the school? He said, some of the water fountains don't work, a few other things, but it's pretty good. And of course, he doesn't know that, I understand that HVAC may need some work in these things. But he lived there for 4 years, well, not 4 years because of COVID, but for quite a while. And he's going to Cornell, so he's not a stupid kid either. He's being.
Shobit done a good job.
I just think we're threatening here a lot with losing accreditation and so forth. I don't think that's gonna happen. Nobody can say for sure, but I highly doubt it. And 240 million is $250 million, folks. That's a heck of a lot of money, and it's gonna raise our taxes a heck of a lot. I think we should fix up what we got and keep it going, is my personal opinion, but that's where I stand. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah.
So I'm Lisa Nielsen, I live at 68 Cirque Drive, and they made a lot of comments about how our changes in the building are gonna help educate our child. It is not the building that educates your child, it's the teachers. My son spent 2 years at St. John's and 2 years at Neshoba. He lost, his last 2 years were not, he gained so much more education from St. John's, where they have a combination of old and new, but they waited to do their new projects when they could afford it. We have so many people in Stow who are looking to move out now because they can't afford the annual increase of taxes. People are terrified. I have 3 people in my neighborhood who have just lost their spouses, and now they're like, well, do we stay in Stow or do we leave? This was our home. We wanted to stay here, and now they're all looking to move because they can't afford it. We have all these young kids who are coming in, and that's all well and good, but we're focusing in our energies for Stow to, all of our housing that we're doing for low income seems to be fit for children and families. What are we gonna do when this school gets built and it's gonna be out of, it's not gonna be worth anything because it's gonna be out of date? And it's really not all the bells and whistles you put into the school. What I'm hearing now from people who have kids in center school is their kids are using smart boards, but they're using to watch videos. They're not, our kids don't need a smart board. St. John's didn't have smart boards. They had great, they spent their money on the science stuff and put in labs, but they didn't have smart boards in every single classroom. They had, their classroom building was old, just like here at Neshoba. They had things that worked and didn't work, but they fixed them up and they spent the money they had. We are in a point right now where our economics for the country is not doing so well, and now we're gonna go out and we're gonna put money out for bonds. Who says that our interest rates by the time we get this all done is not gonna keep on climbing up? We're looking at 4% now, but that doesn't mean that a year down the line or 6 months or whatever, that our interest rates are not gonna be in the 5 and 6%. And they can say all they want about how much they're gonna, that what people are predicting, but they have no idea.
Well, I think that last thing, that's one of the reason that one of the strategies would be to borrow the money all at once at first.
But I think
So
that we
then
should,
you get a rate.
and construction costs are so high right now.
I'm in the business.
Yeah, so I look at corporate, what we paid for when we were doing corporate construction, and it's so much cheaper. Maybe we look at a different type of building and put up something. We look at AMSA. AMSA's in 3 different buildings, and they're one of the best
Science.
schools in the state, and they have crummy, they don't have fancy stuff. We have a friend's daughter who goes there and 3 other people, and their facilities aren't state of the art, but they're getting a great education.
Thank you.
So,
Tom Ryan, 453 Great Road. One of the things is not too long ago, we ended up building a school here in town. It started out as a very expensive project. It got cut back, changes were made, consolidations were done, and we ended up managing to chop almost $20 million off the original cost of it. And part of the reason we were looking at that is we were being told that Pompo, building was falling down around us. Our kids are all going to, have a terrible education in there. We need to do something. We eventually got a fairly good solution. But then we ended up rehabbing Pompo for fairly short change. We ended up really thinking outside the box. We ended up putting the fire station in there. We've got a community center, all for very short change, and we came in under budget because we were looking at that. I think that's the kind of thing we need to do here. I don't think that the building's getting ready to fall down. I'm sure that it needs some help. But the thing is, I think, I'm very concerned about $250 million. I'll leave it at that for now.
You have a couple folks on.
So before we go on, do you have a comment, Megan?
I just wanted to remind everyone that we're not voting on this tonight.
No,
That it's,
exactly.
this is
So,
this is.
This was just a discussion.
But I'm like worried that we're
It's really
it's gonna
information
snowball
session.
and snowball. I mean, it is, we got a lot of information from Kirk. I'm hearing,
thanks for coming.
I try very hard to only keep my select board hat on in these meetings, but I do have 2 children in this school system. And I'm having, we do need to invest in these kids. It is not enough to have crummy stuff that our taxpayers are paying for our children. That to me is unacceptable. It's not why we moved here. And I'm sorry that if that's not everyone's experience, but I do speak for a constituency in town as well. And so I do wanna say that I fully understand, which is why I asked a lot of the questions that I asked about cost and whether or not a lot of avenues had been explored. I do understand that, once you don't have kids in the school system anymore, the idea is I got my kids through it, it was fine. I think, we need to think that I don't want my taxes to go up a lot either, but also I don't want them going to a school that is falling down, so we've seen.
Right.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I see 2 more people with their hands up. I would like to end this. I've got 8:08 on the clock. I would like to end it by 8:15 or before. And before I hear those 2 people, I would like to clarify one thing again myself. So on the base option that was not chosen of repairing the building, do I understand that the repairs, would they include the new roof and the new HVAC system that we know are going to be required? Would those be things that were necessary to bring the building up to code at this time?
Am I on that? Yes. Yes, those would be the things. The base repair would be replacing the HVAC systems, replacement of the windows, the roof, bringing the building up to code, the energy codes and ADA modifications.
Okay, great, thank you. And also those failing doors would, I'm sure, be in there for egress reasons. Great, thanks. Okay, just the order, I see them on my screen. Mark Forbes.
Hi, good evening, Mark Forbes, 9 White Pond Road. I've actually owned a couple of houses in town and paid the taxes for many years, and I totally agree that the school needs some help. My problem is I was also I ran a major facility, an $80 million facility for many years, and one of the things that was required was that some kind of maintenance or scheduling of repairs and upgrades and updates were done on a regular basis. I'm getting the impression from the speakers tonight that this building is ready to fall down, and that it's in poor disarray, and that you need to do this today because the kids aren't going to have any place to learn. I don't believe that's the case. I believe that if it is the case, then maybe we should look at finding people who can actually maintain the building as well as run the school for these kids to have schools to learn. Plus, technology changes all the time. You're buying new computers and this and that with the technology today. In 3, 4, 5 years or less, the technology's gonna change again, you have to do that all over again. I'm not sure what all these upgrades are that they're gonna be doing. I hear about it. This is the first time I heard about the meeting, which I was sorry to say. But I'm not in favor of this, the way it's being outlaid right now. It seems like a lot of money. There's a lot of people who are living on fixed income on Social Security. They're talking about a 3% raise in Social Security this year, which is nothing compared to the $1,000, $1,500 that you're talking about for an increase. It's gonna be more than they're getting for their raise on Social Security, and they don't have any kids in school. And I'm sure they have no problem paying for the school system, but you gotta think about the overall case of what you're looking at. This is a lot of money. And what do we get out of it in the end? Then we're gonna end up with the same problem another 20 years because the building's not being maintained. And I got a lot of problems with this, but that's all I'm gonna say for tonight. Maybe I'll write you guys a letter. But
Thank
have a
you.
good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And
And-
iPhone is Linda Hathaway.
Oh, good. Linda?
Hi, I'm sorry, I have little technical difficulties identifying my iPhone. Anyway,
Quite all right.
my question is for the superintendent. I know they've mentioned the accreditation report several times. I finally found it on the website. It is very, very deep in there. But as I read through that accreditation report, there were other deficiencies other than the building. Some of it was the maintenance schedules and some of the communications between departments and classrooms and some of the other things. I wanted to know, because we keep hearing that we'll lose accreditation if we don't get the new building. I'm wondering, have the other deficiencies in that report been addressed and corrected so that they are, would help with the accreditation in the future? And then the second question I have is, comment is, I know our taxes are gonna increase, and that even this year without the school budget going in, so those numbers of $1,300 to $1,500 a year, it's gonna be a lot higher because many of the values in the town are changing and going up. So we're gonna see a major increase in many of the properties in Stow prior to this. But now, those are my two comments, and if the superintendent could comment, that would be great. And I'm done, thank you.
Thanks.
You bet. Thank you, Linda. It's good to hear from you. What I will say is, as I read the follow-up report from Principal Davis back in 2017, many of the items that were cited in the 2015 report indeed were addressed. It also was one of the foundation documents that we used in developing our strategic plan for the school system. So for instance, shared leadership amongst the building has been a major priority, and we put forth that information in town meeting last year as we restructured our administrative staff as well as looking at building shared leadership structures in the district. So yes, all the elements in the report are addressed, and that's where you can do some things when it comes to, say, the systematic operations of the building. You can't correct the fact that you don't have ventilation systems for your science labs through professional development or structuring of systems. Those are the limitations that we have with those things. But yes, those other elements have been addressed both through Principal Graham back in 2017 as he documented in his follow-up report. But those are the things we're preparing for when we come up for our decennial review here in a couple of years.
Thank you.
Just one other question, just for information to the superintendent. I've heard that there's a plan to add some vocational aspects into the project. Is that true?
That was in his presentation.
It wasn't.
It was part of the presentation.
I'm just trying to clarify. So there are aspects that are for vocational that are in the project.
Go ahead, Kirk, if you can be quick. Yes, there are. Oh, you're.
Yeah, I've asked him to.
Sorry, it didn't pop up. No, we're not adding any vocational programs to it. As a matter of fact, you can't. You can't compete with your programming with the vocational programming for which you are a member of, and that is Minuteman Tech for us. We currently have wood shop, metal shop, robotics, computer science, web design as part of our courses currently at Neshoba Regional High School. So it's simply just enhancing those particular programs as we move forward. What we did is what we've created is educational pathways. They are not vocational programs, and those educational pathways integrate curriculum with those vocational types of things. So for instance, like theater and the production shop can integrate together to produce sets that would support programming, things of that nature. But there are no new vocational programs. There were some questions about 2 preschool classrooms as part of that. We have to meet the demands of our community in terms of the number of students with special education needs that require IEPs that are of preschool age, and we have to match them in classrooms with students that do not have those needs. And so we have a waiting list right now for those things. And so what that does is afford us an opportunity to offer a class around early childhood that would support that, but it's not a vocational program. So that is, it would be the only thing I would think of it.
Thank you. And so we have, in fairness, I have one more person, last person. Did you have a comment?
No, I was gonna tell you that Joe is the chair of the school committee and he has his hand raised, the
Yes.
school building committee.
Yes, I'd like to hear from him, please. Mr. Gleason.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and knowing, looking at the clock, and I will reprimand Superintendent Downing for speaking too long, because I know you wanted to be out of here by 8, I'd be off the subject by 8:15, so I'm gonna be exceedingly brief. Yes, Joseph Gleason, Chairman of the Neshoba Regional High School Building Committee and a member of the District Committee from Lancaster. Very, very briefly, Madam Chair, and I apologize, I was at the Lancaster FinCom meeting this evening, so I wasn't able to attend the whole meeting. And it may have already been broached, but there's been a lot of talk and, dare I say, speculation regarding the condition of this building. I, at my capacity as chair, have been begging every resident of this district who has a vote to come and see this building. We had several days scheduled for walkthroughs in April. We didn't get the number of people that we wanted. We consolidated into one walkthrough day. We have another one scheduled for September 9th. If there's any questions, if you have any concerns, questions, if you just want to see what we're talking about when we talk about the condition of the building, please come on September 9th. There are reservation forms on the building committee's website. It is a 2-hour walkthrough with our facilities director. You will see some really enlightening things in this building. So with that, Madam Chair, I'll turn it back over to you, and I thank you for your time.
Great, thank you for highlighting that. I'm glad there's one more opportunity out there, September 9th. Okay, let's move on. Thank you, folks, for coming. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. Thank you very much for your thorough presentation and all your answers. And hopefully we'll just keep plugging away. Thank you. Okay. Now we have a vote to exercise takings on Box Mill Road. So do you have, I read your memo and various materials. Do you have, Denise, do you have anything to say on this?
I'm happy to just say, so this project obviously started in 2017. It has been going, it has been actively in progress since that time. I included with my memo a timeline of what has taken place on this project. MassDOT has committed about $3.3 million to replace this bridge. We have done all the necessary steps, including back in 2019, I believe, the board at that time authorized proceeding with the eminent domain process. We have gone through, obviously, the layouts. We have one more vote at town meeting to finalize the layout of the road. But tonight, I'm asking the board to exercise the takings. Because this is a MassDOT project, MassDOT is actually handling the project itself. The town is responsible for the takings. We hired an appraiser, we valued, there's 2 properties involved. We have issued offer letters, and hopefully with an affirmative vote this evening, we will go to the registry tomorrow and record the takings and the plan and send notification out to the two property owners. And then on Monday, MassDOT is preparing the notice of advertising. So if we do not meet this timeline, we do lose out on this project funding because we are on MassDOT's timeline and it is very tight this time around. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I think in the July meetings, we talked about these, I think at both meetings. So it should be, I hope all of your questions have been answered along the way, but again, happy to answer any questions you may have at this point.
Great, thank you. Questions?
No.
Great.
No, I thought everything was very clear. I appreciated this timeline as well because
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure you
Very
can.
helpful.
Will this go faster than the Gleasondale Bridge?
Well, so with this bridge, they're actually building a temporary bridge in its place
Oh, yeah.
because in order to get to Carver Hill, they need access. So there will be a temporary bridge up. The hope would be that it's a faster process. And yes, I would like to thank Jackie and Kathy and the Conservation Department for putting this timeline together. They keep all these records and keep the diary of conversations with the property owners. And so it's very helpful as we go through the project.
Perfect.
I'm ready for a motion.
It's the longest one.
It is.
I move to take by eminent domain for all purposes for which public ways are used in the town of Stow, including without limitation, for the purpose of undertaking the Box Mill Road over Elizabeth Brook Bridge reconstruction project, the following interests in, on, and under certain parcels of land abutting or near Box Mill Road, Stow, Massachusetts, and shown more particularly on a plan entitled Easement Plan of Land Box Mill Road over Elizabeth Brook, Stow, Massachusetts, dated June 26, 2023, prepared by Green International Affiliates Incorporated and is set forth more particularly on the order of taking as presented this evening.
Second.
Any comments or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay. Select board goals and work plan discussion. Now it begins.
It's an
Nice to see you, Tom.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, quick exit.
Very quick.
Okay, thanks everybody for sending things in.
Yes, all right.
Those of us that did or didn't. Thank you, Ingeborg, for your lengthy comments.
You're welcome.
I did have one question for Ingeborg. The comments that are in the TA's goals, were they meant to be in the select board's goals or they were meant to be the TA goals?
Town
Okay.
administrator goals. I didn't put any for myself or the board. I just did town administrator goals. And some of the questions, I believe you are already working on them. And it's just more a matter of making sure we know where things stand, so, because a lot of them you're already doing. But I think the big one is, what are we doing about taxes and costs and budgets? And it was part of the previous year goals and stuff like that. How do we try to get a handle on all our capital and non-capital wish lists? I mean, this discussion that we just had really is a matter of, what do people want? Where do they want to live? What kind of a town? And it can be personal in terms of how much we can afford or not. But you know, one of the most important things in our future is our kids, and we have to support our kids. So second guessing a lot of work that was done already is hard. And so I'm really glad they do have this September 9th thing. But I mean, this is same true for the town, for the library, for the town hall. And for all our open space and all everything that we need to budget for maintaining our parks, our open space, our sidewalks, and we get criticisms for not criticism, concerns that we don't pave our sidewalks. You know, there's all sorts of things that this town is expecting in terms of the residents in this town expectations have changed. We're now more, instead of a more volunteer fire department or a volunteer whatever, we're adding more and more staff, which is why I sort of asked, well, what's our staff projections, how? And we all know that education, which was great that you commented on, that education is the majority of our cost per dollar.
It's gonna be 70 cents.
Yeah, well, we knew that when we voted to approve what's it called? Minuteman, I keep calling Middlesex Minuteman.
Yep.
When, at the end of the meeting, someone stood up and said, well, are you saying we're gonna cost X $1,000, tens of thousands per student? The answer was yes, we are, and it voted to pass. And I've heard from the same constituents that we all have, that we just go to town meeting and vote yes on everything, and then our costs keep going up. So the real question is, town meeting has to decide, what is Stow? What is Stow? And we're no longer that small rural town. There are people that live here that expect good services. Like, why do we have 3 or 4 or 5 different garbage trucks running around Stow? Why don't we have a good recycling facility? Why don't we have this and why don't we have that? So my points were with respect to our future is, maybe it is a select board goal, but I think we need an education on what does one do when the demands are so high. And it does affect individual people's pocketbooks in a significant way. When you talk about $3 a day, that's a lot of money, right? For one of our big projects. And then every time we buy a new multi-$1,000 vehicle for whatever department we need, and everything accrues. So that's my big question, is how does this board, either through board goals or town administrator goals, try to manage and work with the town to anticipate, at least, so that people aren't caught off guard with the costs. And I think a lot of the comments we got today were people who haven't been following the project that much and haven't seen all the work that's been put into that. A lot of the stuff that we heard tonight, we'd heard before. Not, because you're newest, you're the newest, you weren't on the board when they were coming to us on a repeat thing, but. So I don't have an answer. It's sort of like I'm throwing this out saying, well, what does a town do in this kind of circumstance?
Well,
I share your concerns too, right? We have almost purely residential tax base. And so
That's all we don't have any other kind of tax
Right.
base, do we?
I mean,
There's
there's
some
some business, but I feel like it's negligible.
We have a single rate, but we do have businesses.
businesses
Single
that pay
rate,
it, right.
got it, yes.
But that's the problem, and I think that there have been opportunities in the past for businesses or types of manufacturing to come to town and where we would have had that money, and that didn't happen. And so I think we need to, I'll be on that high horse forever, but it's my biggest frustration.
You mean the school or the water?
No, I
There's
mean
some recent legislation
Oh.
made
You mean
potential.
the Starbucks?
We could have made a lot of money and we didn't make a lot of money. Anyway, but I'm just saying, but that was another thing that went on town meeting floor and it went on the ballot and people decided that was not what they wanted in this community, and that's fine, and I understand that. However, if we do not have business in the town in order to offset the residential, if my house, we could not afford to buy our house in it now.
Right.
And we've only lived here for 10 years. So I'm we're watching the rates increase, we're watching the tax rates, but the value going up. The assessments going up because we were in COVID, because people wanted to move to this town, because it is this, idyllic rural town. But there is some give and take there, right? And so I do think, I don't know as a board, I don't know what we can do, and that to me feels like the exploration that we could look into is how do we draw in new businesses into town?
To improve our infrastructure.
Right. And so that was,
We're working on that.
right,
We're working on it.
His hand was up.
anyway, sorry, my 2 cents.
Go ahead, JT.
I absolutely totally agree with everything that you just said.
Thank you.
Right down the line.
Great.
Even with cannabis.
Cannabis? Oh, cannabis.
That was the big.
That was what I was
We
saying,
passed
I was saying we decided not to allow for weed
bit of
manufacturing.
revenue there.
As far as that's concerned, I mean,
That could come back to town meeting, listen, if
exactly,
someone wants to
especially with
bring
a
it back.
$250,000 school, people might be willing to take another look at it, who knows? But, in all.
Certainly a different pool of voters.
Yeah, in all seriousness though, I hear what you're saying, I feel the frustration as well. I didn't put stuff down because, you know, my dad said you eat an elephant a bite at a time. And yeah, the elephant seems to be getting a lot bigger.
Very big.
So, you know, my goals were kind of simple. Specific, one of which is let's again look at renting out the kitchen at the community center and let's slog through that and see if we can't start to generate a bit of income from that. And the reason why I say that is because from that you can get the folks who are doing it for trial kitchens, etc., who are residents of the town here might very well consider, hey, this is something that's gonna work, and is there a spot in town I could open up a little place? You know, and that's one of the thoughts that I had had with the commercial kitchen. I understand there are issues. We do have a policy, and I wanna thank Denise for however you found it. God bless you. Quite frankly.
She knew the years.
It was Joyce, it was all Joyce.
Okay, well then we all owe Joyce a lunch or something because for the research she had to go through to find that thing.
Yeah.
But she found it. So we do have a base workings, as you had brought up, Ingeborg, because you were the one I think that had said you thought we did have it. And to possibly really go through that, at the very least, we need to update the fees, cause they're not even covering the costs right now for events that are there, at bare minimum.
That's what, we should put that on the agenda for future.
Well, this is just kind of goal stuff, so that's a very specific goal. Another specific goal I had, which you kind of alluded to, is our wonderful trash situation in town. And I have done a bit of research on that, actually, and I'd like to see us maybe explore it and maybe as a board direct Denise to do a cost analysis to possibly go townwide. And I've heard a couple of comments from people, I don't wanna be paying for somebody else's trash.
Exactly, yes, you're
Okay.
gonna hear all sorts of comments
All right.
back.
Well,
Yes.
I can tell you from what I've done on my own personal aspect of things, the trash companies are going up and up, and you know why? Because they're making you pay for everybody else's trash. The plan that I'm looking at is almost like a pay-as-you-go, $1 a bag,
Well, pay-as-you-go is a wonderful idea.
okay? $1 a bag.
Prorated to your use, which is.
Yeah,
To
it
Where
is.
do they have that? They have that in,
Various towns.
they have it on
Various
Martha's
towns
Vineyard too, yeah, you have to buy the bags, right?
Yeah, you buy the
You get a
bags,
sticker,
however,
or you get a
okay,
bag,
Yeah.
buy a
that
bag.
$1 per bag comes back to the town.
Hmm.
We're generating
Who
that
then
income.
pays pays somebody to get rid of the.
Correct,
Got it.
okay, and
So there's a lot of people
From-
who hate that idea.
And that's gonna add a lot of money to the budget. Trash is not cheap when we take it on a municipal basis.
I understand
We
that.
have no more
I understand
landfills.
that, but it is a service that we might actually be able to give to our residents here in town.
For more money, money.
So I
Not
think
necessarily a lot of money.
I'd like to counter it with some negotiation or at least some publication of options with other towns. Now, somebody told me recently that it's possible to buy an out-of-town sticker to go to the Acton dump. They have a swap shed and they have whatever they have, they have a transfer station that you can take your vehicle to with your stuff and deal with it yourself on your own schedule. And for some people, that is the system that they would prefer. And I think people should know, because until recently, I thought my only option was to have one of these buckets at the street and deal with a hauler.
Absolutely. I'm just saying
you
that's one of the goals I'd like to see us really look at what the different options are to see what we could actually offer our residents. Because when I did the cost analysis, the average cost is something like $40 or $45 a month. I don't remember off the top of my head for a trash service. And it has gone up, which I understand, okay? When I did the cost analysis per household, for same size towns as ours, it actually ran about $17 a month that they were paying, and with the buck a bag system. Well, that's a reduction, significant reduction, in offering a service to the town. So that's why I'm saying.
Lisa's counter on that, because
She's gonna have to hire staff.
Yeah, I've never seen it be that low. I mean, I went through 3 municipal trash contracts in my prior communities, and because of the cost of recycling, and we're in a mandatory recycling state, companies go bankrupt because they can't negotiate contracts anymore for the lower pricing, because then they get stuck in there covering the cost. If it's the will of the board, we can certainly explore it. But keep in mind, you don't oversee trash. The elected Board of Health oversees trash in this town. So we could certainly do the research, but it would be up to them what they want to do. And we would certainly need to add staff if we're selling bags or selling transfer stickers or whatever. I said, and it may have been to you, JT, people are very particular about trash.
Yep.
If the trash man comes down the street at 7:00 every morning, at 7:10, they will call and say, they have not picked up my trash yet. If there's a snowflake, are they picking up my trash today? Why haven't they come today? People are very needy when it comes to trash, especially municipal trash. We would absolutely have to add staff if we are considering bringing a trash service in-house. And it is my last calculation and actually I should look, because I got the cost from Groveland after I left, and it was approximately $900,000 to $1.1 million to do the annual municipal trash.
Groveland is how big?
Same size as, it's actually smaller, 6,800 residents.
So, one of the things, yes, every step you take is a good one, potential. Sorry, Madam Chair, I don't know if it's my turn. I didn't know.
Go for it.
Okay. Is good. And maybe, to your point about, I don't know that the town of Stow residents understand all the services the town provides. And so they just get every town meeting this list of everyone's salaries and they cherry pick, whether or not that's good. But as we know, because we're on the board, that the salaries are not the big ticket item in town, it's education. And until we can improve, so I think a goal should be like your goal, let's really get those wells done down at Lower Village and improve the infrastructure there enough, bring up the cannabis thing. However, we've got so much competition, 2 or 3 in Maynard and at least 2 in Hudson and.
Yeah, but I think we have the manufacture, I do think that we have the manufacturing capabilities that those towns do not necessarily have. I think we have the zoning for the manufacturing.
And we actually have a site.
So that's something to explore, so maybe that's a select board item, right? And maybe, I don't know how much more education one can do. I know the press is watching us tonight, maybe not anymore, but.
No, Anne's still here.
Okay.
You know, cannabis is gonna be on the front page of tomorrow's paper. Revisiting cannabis is gonna be Anne's headline.
Cannabis.
Just saying,
Increased
how else do you wanna make, please.
We're looking, so.
We're looking to figure out how to lower taxes.
Lower taxes, that's right.
Well, that's certainly not the only way that we're.
No, I that obviously,
Just to be
but
extra clear.
I'm just saying, like, that is a way to lower taxes.
So I mean, going back to the
Yes.
whole thing where we, sorry, it's Hector's turn.
I know,
because
I'm
he's
sorry, I keep
politely
interrupting.
raising his hand. Would you speak?
What I've been hearing is similar to some of the things that I proposed. One was, if I understood what Ingeborg was saying, was fiscal oversight and financial responsibility for the town, which, given what's going on with the school, what's happening with the library, many feedback I've gotten from some of the residents is that we've seemed to have lost it. I don't think we've lost it, but I can certainly see that we need to be more
I'm sorry, lost
educational.
what, fiscal responsibility, okay.
Be more educational about what is going on financially in the town, where the money's coming from. I had one resident ask me recently, so we voted to pay for the library, when is that gonna hit our taxes? And I honestly couldn't answer, I didn't know what the answer was for that. That's my problem, I need to be more educated about it, but I also figure the residents need to know. But a general goal of being more fiscally aware, have better fiscal oversight and financial responsibility, I think is a good goal for the select board. Finding ways to attract more business into the town to help with the tax base, because yes, the majority of our taxes come from our residents, the majority of our income. And at 70 cents on the dollar going to education, that doesn't leave a whole lot left for trash collection and
Police, fire,
It's been that way for a
and
long
all
time
that kind of
too.
stuff. So
really.
finding another goal could be finding other sources of income besides just taxes, like renting commercial kitchens. Whatever the feasibility might be about starting Stow's own tax collection or trash collection. Trash tax, interchangeable.
We're gonna have a town tax.
Going back to the 1800s.
But finding other ways that we could generate income to help with these costs,
Well, we have been very successful with grants. And
which we now have a grant writer.
I think your vision for improving our skills in that is to be commended. And obviously, with a grant writer, we're going to pursue that further to offset some of our costs with the state programs, and you being knowledgeable of all of them definitely helps.
There was one more I
Oh, I'm
wanted
sorry, I
to
didn't
add.
mean to interrupt. but-
That's okay. And the final thing that I've heard most of us say is finding ways to communicate to the residents. I know we try to do a lot. There's the paper, there's the website, and the website has improved by leaps and bounds. We're doing Facebook. I'm not on Twitter or X or whatever it's called nowadays, and I don't know how we're doing with that. But I think it would be our goal to, maybe we need to hire a professional to find out what's a better way to communicate to the residents, because we're also having a harder time finding volunteers. We have
Yes.
a lot of empty spots,
Right.
a lot of positions that have gone unfilled for years. And many of us that are actually involved in what's going on in town have the perception that the rest of the town is just like, give me my 1.5 acres and leave me alone. I don't think that's true. I think there's plenty of residents in the town that would be willing to get involved, but somehow we're just not communicating. And if we could find a better way to do that, I'm done now, sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I just agree with looking at ways to clarify and to clarify to ourselves and plan and understand what what's coming at us financially and how to be more transparent about that. And I kind of see, I was gonna make a comment, Hector, I sort of feel in my own life as though there are times when I'm paying attention to, whatever stuff that's going on at work. And so, I read the paper and I'm like, oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. And then I go back because there's something that's taking a lot of my attention at work. And so if I'm not more involved, if I'm not on a board or committee already, I don't have a reason to keep me focused on what's happening in town unless I'm really passionate about, and I've dedicated part of my life to paying attention to stuff that's going on in town. And I can only imagine if I had small children or a larger household that the complexity would distract me from volunteering. And so, or from even being in touch with what's going on. And so, I think that what I'm taking a long time to get to is I don't know how to keep people up to date with information in a feed that we are giving to them rather than they're having to partake of. So if somebody signs up, they get regular emails from the town about stuff that's going on. They get a link to all sorts of agendas and things that are going on. If they subscribe to the paper, then they get all the information that's in the paper, et cetera. I don't go on Facebook, so I have no idea what's going on Facebook, and so I'm not in any of that loop. And there are times that I feel as though I've completely missed a lot of conversations because of that. But those are choices, and so I don't think we can force people. We can't force the information into people's hands in some way.
The only modification I would add is that I don't think we should be trying to solution it right now. More that,
That's
what is the
something we wanna
goal?
talk about,
Right.
yeah.
And if we make that the goal, then we can find ways to find solutions.
Sure.
No, oh, sorry,
Sorry,
I'm not gonna jump on everybody else.
sorry.
You had hands.
You had your hand up first.
I did?
Yep, you got it up before I did.
Okay. With respect to this topic, when I was preparing it, I looked at some other towns just to get a sense of and you know what they do? They have nicely published 11 by 17s they're on their website with goals by topic, and they track them every year. And so to the extent that the town wonders what our board does, or what the town administrator does, you now go speak to the public every month or whatever it is, which is wonderful, that if we can go through this list, and that's why I sort of thought we should have a separate meeting on this, just talk really specifically about various things, because we're not gonna come to any conclusions I move to tonight.
No.
I think what we need to do is prepare something that is sort of standalone for the citizens, for our constituents, to understand what our goals are. And maybe give it an opportunity for input, I mean, everyone in town's gonna be, let's talk about taxes. That's all I hear these days. Well, what about this and what about that? And I'm like, okay, well,
Well, I mean, it's taxes versus services, and so as you said earlier,
and right.
They want the sidewalks to be plowed, but they don't want their taxes to go
And they
up for a
want
new
preschool,
school.
kindergarten, but they don't,
Right.
and not they, we
We
want all
as a
these
community.
things. So, we want the open space, we want our agricultural properties, we want, we all love Stow, and it's just costing big time. So I think we should have a separate meeting, but now it's your turn since you can.
As long as Madam Chair is okay with
Please.
this. Okay. One of the things that I've heard time and time again, when people, and I've heard it discussed between residents in town, talking about doing different committees and things like that. This comment I've heard more than any other. It's really a thankless job. That has concerned me immensely. And I think we, as the executive board, the CEOs, have to find ways to acknowledge the really terrific service that a lot of these board and committee members do. And it light dawned on Marblehead, if you will, recently, because I can be one thick-headed Irishman.
You could say Marble Hill.
Yeah. And Denise had a staff appreciation. I have heard nothing but raving reviews, so thank you for that. But I think we as a board maybe need to do something like that for our other boards and committee members, to have an appreciation event. I'm throwing out specific stuff, but if we're looking to try to get away from, oh, it's a thankless job, oh, you know, there's just nothing. This might be one way we can maybe step it up ourselves.
Personally, I don't think it's a thankless job.
I'm sorry.
I understand,
I
and
think there's a lot to be gained by going head to head with people in a room just trying to hash out ideas, but that's my own personal quirk.
I love that. I do think that, we moved here 10 years ago. Great. But there were people who have been here for generations and they've been on committees and they've been on boards and they do whatever. And like, you're trying to find your way to volunteer. Like, I wanted to volunteer and I got involved. But not everybody is kind of like bull in a china shop like I am. So, what I would love to see is, I love that idea of some kind of an appreciation thing, but if we could somehow combine it with a volunteer fair. So every committee is there, they have people, and then if we could also open it up to the town, sorry, this is gonna cost money, this is a thing, we can workshop it all later, but to be able to like have people understand that these are the people that are volunteering for it, they are real people. Like, I think a lot of times I will see comments like, well, the select board does this, and it's like, no, we're having these conversations right now, like we are working these things out, and there are other committees and stuff that I think that there are volunteers that could be drawn into volunteering. So I know that it's two problems. I think we did have one a while ago, but yes.
We have candidates night, but that's not really,
No, we had a,
I mean, we have, wasn't there a yearly,
it was at the Pompo Center, there was a meet the boards or
meet and greet of boards and committees.
and open volunteer positions, it was something that we did,
Yes.
but it's a great idea, we should do it.
I don't know, it's a way to,
I agree with what you're saying. I think we do need to
keep
them separate.
Yep.
Because if we're gonna appreciate the folks that are doing it, let's do that.
Okay.
And then have a fair, if you want, whatever we wanna call it, where we have them there and invite the town. Yes, have food and drink, because usually if you have food and drink, at least you get some people to come for the free
Ice cream social.
freebies, or ice cream social or something, to have folks come in and have representatives from each of the boards and the committees with, what they're doing. And because another perception that I have found is a lot of people think, well, if I get on one of these board and committees, I don't know anything about it, and it's gonna take 80 hours of a month of my life, where in fact, that is not the case, at least not on any of the boards or committees I've been on, except this one. But, so I think if we can do that as well, because I agree with you, Megan, I think it's really important to open it up as well.
I love the idea of appreciating all the other committees and boards that we have. I don't know how we do that and still stay within open meeting laws.
If you're not
we're just not discussing
meetings,
meetings,
we
we
can
can all be in the
Right.
same
Social
room,
event.
yeah.
And that'd be great, But that also brings to mind another goal that I thought we might consider. We no longer have liaisons, and we no longer have communication with the other boards and committees. And I think it would be a great goal for us to be able to hear from a board or committee once a month, to hear what they're doing and what can we do to help them.
I love that. We
Do it in a way though that they come here, tell us what's going on, we thank them for their work and ask them what to do, and not in a way where they feel like they're coming before the firing squad getting to get, because
We
I've
can't
heard,
control that.
well, to some extent we can. I have heard in the past,
Yeah.
previous select boards have done it in a way where people didn't wanna come because they didn't wanna be called out on the carpet. So we have to be very careful and tactful in how we do it, to say, what are you doing? How can we help?
Right,
Yeah.
just an update, what can we do to help
Exactly.
support you?
And if we have like the same board come every month, planning board in September, FinCom in October, whatever, they know that this is gonna be coming up and they can prepare for whatever they need to prepare and be able to just come to us, give us a short explanation of what they've been working on and whatever their requests are, and we can listen.
Right, and cue us also, like, hey, this is gonna be coming to you guys.
Exactly.
We talked about this before.
We did talk about it before and it never happened.
It's
Because
a great idea.
It's
So how do we implement?
Well,
It's-
the issue was, you know, you can invite elected boards, they don't need to attend,
They
cause
don't
they
have
don't
to,
answer
because
to
they're
you.
elected, yeah.
And that's really who the board wanted to meet with. They wanted to meet with the elected boards, the Board of Health, and then that got out of control because one board member started asking questions and in an accusatory tone, and then there was animosity. You know, I think if we had a calendar and said, okay, well, this is sort of the prime planning board time when they're gearing up for town meeting, and this is when we should talk to them, and it just never got off the ground. I think it's, you know, you have boards and committees, you know, it may be invite the chair, but to ask boards and committees to spend another night of their time to come here and talk about what they're doing, when they could say, well, why don't you read our minutes, or why don't you come to our meeting? That's what some of them said, well, why don't they come to our meetings if they wanna know what's going on?
scheduling.
They're at the same time.
Right, so I think we certainly can try it, we've tried it, it just hasn't,
Yeah.
it hasn't come to fruition in the last few years. It's been a goal, pretty much every year that I've been here to have these communication and conversations. But, you know, with, business agenda items and other business matters that we have to do, we just never get to the point that we have that kind of time to have conversations, so.
Why did we stop having liaisons?
Cause that became very
Odious.
controversial and nefarious at
I
times.
just, well, yes, there were a number of reasons why. But also it's hard, I think, when you have a board of 5, that is really my understanding and my feeling is that when you have a board of 5, that is a board of 5, not one person, that it really made more sense to have them coming to report to all of us as opposed to one of us going to a meeting or doing that and then having to report back. It seemed a little telephony to me, you know? And so information, I think, was not necessarily relayed in the way that it should have been or could have been because there was the extra person in the middle. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
It's
I don't know.
too human. Humans are so weird.
Anyway, but yeah.
And just to add to that, I think part of with the liaisons, some board members, you know, took it as, well, I'll just read the minutes and sort of keep an update. But it was sort of always missing the reporting back to the rest of the board. And then, as Megan just mentioned, the boards made it like the key person. So if Megan was my liaison, I'm the only one, they would call and ask questions and expect her to make decisions on behalf of the board as one board member. And it just, it never sort of flowed correctly.
Right.
At least from when I came in, that was the concern, was that, you know, so JT was going to every meeting of this group and you were going once every 6 months and you weren't going at all, and then people were like, well, I'm going to 7 meetings a week now, and you're not going to any.
Right.
So it just started to fizzle off, and then, yes, the discussion was, well, why don't we have them come here and give us an update, and it's televised, and people in town can see and hear what's happening in these boards.
And that was the argument that I'd make to why don't we attend their meetings? I don't wanna interrupt some board's meeting to say, oh, can you give me a summary of what you've done
Right.
over the past year?
But we
this
can't,
was-
we can't necessarily attend their meetings because we have scheduling conflicts.
Well, there's that too, but
But this is also why I had brought up the point and have asked for, and it will come up on one of our board meetings of, doing as we do, filming everything, because then there is a true level of transparency completely. And it allows us, and the onus would be on us to view those meetings and take a look and see what's going on with them, and that definitely would give us just about an up to the minute update of what's going on with the different boards, and to develop that policy. I think that would resolve a lot of the issues as well.
It would create another avenue for information gathering, certainly.
Absolutely.
But keep in mind, we have approximately 40 boards and committees, so.
And they're not all appointed by us, and the ones that we don't control don't have to follow our policies.
Right.
I think it would be great for the town to know that there are 40 boards and commissions that are comprised of volunteers. That's the kind of fact
Right.
that's out there, so it isn't big government against the world. We're not big government, we're all unpaid.
No, I was like, no one's cashing a paycheck here.
Yeah. I think that's important, that's a great statistic. Okay, so Madam Chair, what are we going to do about this topic?
I like the idea, if the board is amenable, I like the idea of taking some more time to work through some of our ideas and make them more concrete.
And maybe go down the list. I mean, I know some of you were going to provide comments, which you have at the meeting, but if we could have them written down and then just sort of go through each one, just spend, instead of half an hour, just spend 2 hours. And a lot of them I know you're doing, right? Like consolidating departments or, reviewing departmental needs. Similar to the school discussion about increased technology, the town has to be aware of what its technological needs are going to be looking forward.
Yep.
So, and that's where we get into the long-range projections of what does this town need to look at over the next 10, 15 years, so.
Well, and keep in mind, just on that note, in the 3 years I've been here, I had to catch up for the 20 prior years. So especially in terms of technology, I mean, we had nothing here. So, I mean, you couldn't even get your email if you weren't in this physical building. So I do expect, so there have been increases, same thing with staffing. I mean, we were understaffed in so many departments and, so I think, and we continue to look at ways that we can consolidate or make things more efficient. We look at what kind of money we're spending on consultants and could that be a better savings to bring in a part-time or a full-time employee, even with benefits, is that still more cost effective? So, I mean, we do look at those things. We look at them as part of the budget process anyways. But I mean, certainly if there's a goal of having those discussions here, I mean, that's perfectly fine. I have no problem with that. And I do just want to comment on the whole communication, if I may. So, I've struggled with this for 29 years of how do you reach taxpayers and residents. And, it's, being a former tax collector, it was always, well, I didn't know my taxes were due. All right, well, we send a notice. Well, I didn't get it. Well, it's on our, community TV. Well, I don't watch that. It's in our newspaper. Well, I don't read that. It's on our website. I don't go there. Well, what, do you want me to come and knock on your door? Like, at some point. I will say one of my personal goals, and I've been working on it with Joyce, and I've told the department heads, is I would like to start a monthly newsletter. But it's the same thing. It's not gonna be mailed out. It's only gonna be available on our website. People can sign up for it. So I don't know how much more communicating we can do, again, knowing where the town was when I came here to where we are now and the information we put out. At some point, people have to take a little bit responsibility. If they wanna know what's going on, there's plenty of ways to find out. But I'm hoping to have a monthly newsletter, and I've told the departments I want something every month from their department, even if it's, you know, there's nothing going on this month and enjoy the summer, something like that, just so every department can be sort of noted in a newsletter. I was hoping for September, it's not gonna happen for September, with the town meeting, but maybe a January 1st start.
It would be nice too. I know that the paper does Clerk's Corner, but like, it might be nice if you could put something like that in the paper
Yeah,
once
but
a month. But then it's like, you could, but then it's if people aren't getting the paper.
I mean, if they have, if we have stuff, they would certainly run it, I mean.
Yeah.
Can you at a future date let us know what it costs for the times that the paper goes townwide because we're including the warrant?
Yes, well, but I know what it costs with the inclusion of the printing of the warrants. I can ask Cindy.
That might be a good time, or the
because-
bus schedule, or the one that used to get printed.
Well, I mean, there's certain times of the year that the paper goes townwide to every single
Yes.
address. And again, you know, I mean,
Next
Action Unlimited has been coming to us all for for as long as I can remember. And, you know, most of the time it probably just goes right in the
Recycling
basket,
bin.
you know? But it's there, and if it's face up on the table before it hits the bin and there's something compelling there, it might get read. And it's another, so anyway, I mean, I believe that possibly there is a way to insert things into people's mailboxes and give them one more
It
opportunity.
is, but I still think, I mean, the COA newsletter goes out to everyone. Do you all read the newsletter when it comes every month? Cause I know it
Not
goes to
every
you.
month.
My mom lives by it.
You know, but it's,
In the
you know,
Action Unlimited?
we'll say like, do you read the newsletter? Because it does go out, so
Right.
I don't disagree, but I still think if people are, you know, if people don't have a problem, maybe they think their taxes are too high but quite frankly, you're living in a community that's primarily open space and farmland and you pay to live in a town that doesn't have business. I mean,
That's right.
Right.
you move to
Right.
places that you have to pay to conserve land and open space and
Right,
farms and,
right.
But we've gotten so much state money for that.
Yes.
We have really been lucky on that.
yes, no,
Yeah.
certainly, but
But
that
it doesn't
comes off the tax roll.
Yes,
That comes off the tax roll.
it comes off the tax roll, yes, it does.
And so I think if people are content with everything that's going on and you know, other than their taxes, they don't tend to follow up and see what's.
Usually people don't pay attention
They don't pay
until
attention.
Until
They
they
don't.
have a
upset
problem.
about something.
Yeah, I mean, so we can certainly, so next week will be a full distribution of the paper, with our warrant, with our 40, now it has to be 44, cause they have to be in fours, but our 44-page warrant. But hopefully, you know, if we have, if I can get to the monthly newsletter, that would just be another avenue. We use our PR firm whenever we can to put out the more important, but he still sends it out, it goes to the newspaper, it goes on
Right.
social media, it goes on our website.
Right.
So if people aren't looking in those places, they're still not gonna find the information we put out.
Well, if you have a spare page in the warrant, advertise the newsletter. You can sign up for our newsletter. I'm serious.
Well, I don't want,
You
I
could
just.
put a list of open volunteer positions on it
Do
as well.
both.
Yeah, we have,
Yeah.
we did that.
Right,
You
you
did that
did
last-
before, yeah.
I did that, and I'm still planning to do a press release with all the open seats, but we didn't get anybody last year when we put it out. So, I mean, we'll continue to try and find ways to reach people, but if they don't want to be involved, or it's hard to reach them.
I think there's other reasons, you know, there's getting involved is complicated. It's time, it's sitting in a room and being, whether it's just a closed Zoom meeting that nobody extra ever comes to, or whether it's, you know, speaking in a group, you know, I mean, these are things that I learned to do partly as I went through this process. I mean, I wasn't the kind of person who was gonna join the public speaking team in high school. So there are a lot of reasons people might wanna be more involved, but don't get involved.
Well, I certainly made a list of what we discussed here, and I can add it to whatever we decide to communicate so we can discuss it further.
Great.
That'd be great.
Great, let's see if we can, probably not until well after town meeting, will we get a whole night to talk about this, but.
Cool, yes, our next meeting is very
Yeah,
full.
or we do, like you said, have a working group meeting beside our regular meeting.
Yeah, we could,
If we need.
you know, I mean, Conservation
it's another
Commission used to
night.
do fifth Tuesdays or something like that, you know?
We just have
An
to be
extra
on,
night, pardon?
I said we would just have to be on television.
Of course.
Easy for you to say.
Just.
Well, you don't have to, it's still open to the public, but you don't need to be on, it doesn't need to be televised.
Oh, alright.
But then
we
we're
could just-
still required to do
There's,
Zoom.
no, there's no requirement, if
No.
you have an open meeting with the
Oh, it's
public can come
allowed
in.
to do Zoom, it's not required.
Correct, you
Okay.
can offer hybrid, I mean, capital planning only meets in person. There are several boards that only meet in person and don't do Zoom.
Good.
So you could for a working session, and people are welcome to come in and sit and listen, but you wouldn't necessarily have to do the television component if you didn't want
We
to.
wouldn't take
Right.
comments, it would just be the board. Yep.
Right. Similar to like we did the last time, we were
Oh, yeah,
downstairs and
Yep.
had the in-person meeting.
So did everybody look at the prior goals and Denise's nice spreadsheet of progress?
Mm-hmm.
Do we wanna discuss those
Well,
out of order?
the prior goals were what I would, in part, included in my comments.
Got it.
So I don't know that we need to come up with new ones,
Understood.
yes. So I don't know if there's any reason to discuss the old ones except follow-up.
Well, we need to come up with new ones after we evaluate or on these ones, right?
Not now.
Well, that was,
That was the evaluation that we,
we're not
Oh.
ready.
we're not, yeah.
So
Well,
we're
I
gonna
thought-
approve
That's
the
what the working
evaluation
session is
form.
for.
We're approving
No.
a form.
Hector's correct.
Okay.
I mean, the FY '23 goals that you gave me is what you will partially base my review on next meeting. So we can certainly go through them, or if the explanation is fine in the write-up, whatever you wanna do, but yes, this is sort of filters into my review.
Okay.
We're losing someone.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I'm
Hang on,
just
look
trying to
at
move it
my
along,
signature.
so I just wanted to have recognized that bullet point. So, can we look at did anybody have any comments or questions about the evaluation form?
I had one question,
Mhm.
and that is to Denise. Denise, is this form workable for you? Because I defer completely to you on it. I thought it was pretty thorough, but is this what you would expect? I know we did it last year.
So it's fairly standard, it's actually very similar to some of the surrounding towns. When this was updated, we used theirs. I'm fine with it. I think some of the difficulty comes in, that some of the items under each section you may not know enough about. So, I mean, for me, the form is fine, but I don't know if it's fine for you.
How could we learn more about it if
Well,
there's?
that was gonna be my comment on this tonight, that
Yeah.
there's stuff on here I
Well,
don't
especially
have.
because you've,
No, just in general, I could be sitting on this board for the next 15 years and I wouldn't.
I could just put that in the comment box. That's what I did last year.
That's a good idea.
I
Yeah.
think,
Then
Can
I don't
we-
know.
so just for that reason, I would just want the board, if there's something that you feel like you can't put a number to, then would it be okay if your particular weighting was only, like, say you could only answer truthfully 3 out of 7 questions. Your questions were really only 3 questions that you could answer, so it would be a 3 out of 3, just so that she doesn't get pinged as like 3 out
Oh,
of 7
absolutely.
because
Right, yeah.
Well, yeah,
can we
no,
just
no,
make sure
I
that it's
think-
weighted that way
yeah.
because,
I
okay,
think it should be on the average of the questions that we
that weren't
answered.
answered, okay,
Yeah.
great,
Yes,
perfect.
Because, yeah, I agree with you,
Yeah,
because
Cause
it
I don't
really-
want it to be like, well, I didn't know enough about it and I didn't wanna answer it, and then it gets
And then she
recorded
gets
as a 0
penalized
and then you get
because of the
penalized
total.
for it, so.
Yeah, it should definitely be a
I
total
would
answer.
also say though, if you don't answer it, then
Right,
put
and
in the
then-
comments why you did not answer it. Like, I didn't have enough information for number 3 or whatever, just cause I feel like then it's, I don't know. Not transparent, but then it's more helpful to Denise to just be like, well, why did you leave that blank? It's because I didn't feel like I had enough information, not because I think you did a terrible job and you deserve a 0. How do you feel about the pandemic
Could we?
section?
we,
Can we
take
take
that
that
out
off?
Can we get rid of that,
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
please?
It just feels like,
Would it be too complicated or strange to have as part of our ratings for all of these questions another option, which
Oh, an
is,
NA?
I don't know enough, an NA option, and so then it would be clear
Sure.
that that wouldn't be part of the ranking?
Sure.
Does that make sense?
So you're saying just put an NA in there with the 1 through 5s?
Correct.
So are we
Six
to
options.
print out this form and fill it out ourselves, or?
No, well, we'll send it to you.
Get revised.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, because you could just type into it if you wanted to.
Okay, great.
So I will add an NA, and what I'll do, for that purpose then is I will add a total for each section. So that, for each category, you have a total, so if you only answer 3, you just put that, and then you can just add up that column. I'll add that as well.
okay.
That's, yeah.
But we still do our own totals for the whole form and the average,
Yes, I mean, if you leave that blank,
although the total shouldn't be divided by 60.
no, it'll change if we take out those 3, so
Yeah.
I'll look at that.
If we leave it blank, will somebody else do the arithmetic?
Sure.
Come on.
Just
There's a-
saying it to say it. Cause I was just
Right to the
starting to say
goalpost,
that.
Well, I was going to, I mean, well, Dolores will handle that,
You can do the math, that's great.
she can do the math.
So just for process, because we've had a couple of different processes since I've been on the board for your evaluation. Just to clarify, we're gonna fill these out, once you're gonna send them to us, the revised version. We're gonna fill them out and send them back to Dolores. And Dolores is gonna compile the results and create a report for us to then ratify at a future meeting.
Yes, and what I would add is if you would like, given some of the issues last year, so we actually have 3 weeks between now and our next meeting. If you would like, we could have a, say, 2-week deadline. And then she could send out to each of you the consolidated review, and if you had individual comments, you could send them back to her.
Mm-hmm.
And you could individually work with her to finalize before we have a draft come before the board
I
in
think-
public, if you would like.
I think I
great.
would appreciate that, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And if it's not on the 12th, I mean, at this point, doesn't really matter when. So if we wanna do it at the next meeting, if we wanna do it, if you need more time because of Labor Day and the end of the summer, whatever, we could make it the second meeting in September, that gives you extra time to do it, and then work with her to fine tune it.
That's after town meeting, right?
Yes.
That's my
How's the
only
board feel
concern
about that?
is town meeting. Our next meeting will be all about town meeting, right?
No, there's really nothing for you
Oh,
to
there
discuss.
No, we just approved the warrant
So that would
and-
be a perfect time.
It's just, well, no, we have a lot on the agenda for the next meeting. There is an item to discuss town meeting matters if necessary, so if there's something that comes up, but we have quite a few things on the next agenda already. But this is already on the agenda, so we can leave it on the agenda, or I could move it to the 22nd, and we could have your responses due back by like the next meeting.
If we move it to the 22nd, we would just be voting on it then, right? Because in theory, we would have seen the draft, we would have gotten it back to Dolores. I feel like that seems like the best use of our time,
Yes.
but, okay.
So the 22nd will be when it's expected to be in the packet for public review and you to vote on.
Great,
Yes.
perfect.
Do I need to move anything?
I would just, yes, I would approve the form as amended,
As amended.
please. And that is to remove the pandemic section, add an NA option, and add a cumulative total for each section.
Well, subtotal for each section.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ready for a motion?
Yes, please.
I move to approve the fiscal year 24 evaluation form for the town administrator as amended.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes, can it be the fiscal 23? It's for last,
Sorry.
I wrote the wrong thing when I wrote it.
Okay, yeah, fiscal 23. I move to approve the fiscal year 23 evaluation form for the town administrator with the amendments as noted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous.
Great.
Okay. code of conduct, anyone?
I'm sorry, can I
Yes,
go
please.
back to the goals?
Yep.
So do you want, are you sending out the goals that you've compiled? Do you want me to have
I'll
Joyce go
send you
through?
what I have typed up,
Okay,
and then,
I'll have Joyce go through it when she does the minutes and identify the goals. Do you want that on the next agenda, or are we scheduling another night after town meeting for that?
Could we, I mean, if the 29th is sort of that fifth, but Tuesday, we could, I don't know about everyone's availability, but we could do it the 29th.
That's the off Tuesday, the extra Tuesday.
Sorry. Meeting next week?
Yeah. I'm just throwing it out there.
Wait, August?
in a week to discuss this?
If,
Honestly, I don't see.
no, it doesn't look it.
Sorry, it's the night before the first day of school.
I'm sorry?
I said it's the, you mean
It's the
next
day
week?
before the
It's
first day of school.
Yeah, it's the day before the first day of school. I mean, I could do it if needed, but we're talking about our goals or
Yes, our
Denise's goals?
Our goals.
Or both?
The goals, the goals discussion.
Denise's
So,
goals
you
and
said
everything,
we're
I
not
don't
really in
think-
a hurry, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't do it next week. Yeah, if we
Do
could
we
do it,
wanna put that off?
Can we
until
just do it the
next
same
meeting?
day that we do approve the,
Yeah.
or we approve the evaluation?
You're saying September 22nd?
Yeah, the evaluation's all approved, once it's edited.
26th, right?
Yeah, I'm
Not-
sorry, the
No,
26th.
I meant
Before the
what,
26th.
I meant when we actually do the evaluation, get it back to Dolores. Like
That's-
our discussion that we have with Denise about her evaluation, it seems to me that might be a good time to also talk about our goals.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
When will that be?
Is that too much?
I don't
The
think you're
22nd?
talking about the same thing.
Well, I think we have three,
Well, we're gonna
Goal
vote.
We have three
related.
conversations happening.
well, there's three goal-related things. One is the select board's goals.
Mm-hmm,
Two is Denise's evaluation for the prior year.
Mhm.
And then three would be establishing Denise's goals
Yes.
for the upcoming year.
yes.
Yes.
Doing all three at once, I think, is suicide.
Right.
No, so that's not what I was
So
saying,
the
though. I was saying
the
yours.
26th would be looking at my fiscal 23 goals and doing the
establishing
evaluation.
goals for, yes, I said it backwards, but
Yes.
yes, that's the same thing.
And then
26th of
September.
September. And then whether or not you wanna have a separate night to discuss the fiscal 24 goals
For ourselves.
for yourselves and for me, whatever you wanna
I think
do.
that should be a combined thing,
Okay.
because we can't establish our goals until we have our own goals.
Correct.
or it's iterative, so.
Yeah,
Right.
okay,
So we're gonna just wait and pick a day for that.
great.
We're gonna
Well,
kick the
there's
can down the road.
there's 5 Tuesdays in October, so we could do the first Tuesday, October 3rd.
I don't know.
Yeah, we
Oh, I'm
can't
out
do
of
the
town,
last,
I'm at a conference.
and we can't do the last Tuesday,
I
because that's
prefer not to
Halloween,
do
that's
that
the best
because
holiday of the year.
there's a planning board hearing that I'd actually like to watch.
Oh, on the 3rd.
Oh, that's that one.
Wednesdays.
Dale Mill.
We
Yeah.
could do another day too.
Or you could do an off Tuesday.
We could do like the third Tuesday or something like that.
Well,
Of September. So you're saying September 19th?
No, cause that's the day after town meeting. I think we're in October. So
I can't do
October,
the week of the third because.
October 17th could be an off Tuesday.
for you guys.
October 17th, you said?
Yes.
Could be a Wednesday, could be a Thursday.
Alright,
I
I'm
can
gonna
just
put
cut out.
tentative
Concom.
goals meeting.
Do we
For
wanna
what?
do a doodle poll for
October
this?
October 17th.
I can, you want me to send out a doodle?
October 17th.
Guys, do we,
Why, do we need to have more discussion about this?
Well, we can say tentative October 17th
I
and
just put
finalize it at the
tentative
next
on it,
meeting.
yeah.
sure, let's do
Yeah.
that.
Cause there's enough time between now and then.
Hold the
Yeah.
place.
Okay,
And I'll let Kathy know.
Great.
okay. So we will plan for that. I'll have Joyce, Hector, send me what you have. I'll have Joyce go through and listen to the discussion and bullet everything that was said, and then we'll plan for a later time for that.
And you can
Great.
use my bullets, cause they were set
Yep.
as a point-by-point discussion too.
Yes, okay.
Great.
Ugh, this is-
So I see two options in this motion. For the next item.
Cause I really didn't know what you wanted to do.
Well, given the hour, do you guys wanna talk about code of conduct tonight, or do you wanna, table it for a future meeting?
I'm torn.
Why, did someone ask for this to be on?
It's been something that Denise and I have discussed a lot about, because I spoke out against it even before I was on the board. But I've also since come to realize that it is something that's needed.
Okay.
Because there is nothing like that for the volunteers. And this particular one makes more sense, but I'm not sure how much sense it makes to discuss it at 9:30 at night after 2.5 hours. I mean, yes, I put some time into it, and Denise also put some time into it, and it's been hashed back and forth tonight. But again, tonight's probably not the best night to discuss it. I don't know if we will have time to discuss it in September.
Denise?
So, and I do wanna clarify, I think if you wanna have a discussion tonight, it would be if you wanna proceed with having a discussion on the code of conduct, because there was a lot of feedback we had last year. And so that's why it was sort of to discuss moving forward with the draft. So if you wanna, if the board is in favor of looking into this, you could vote to move forward, and then you could all take your time to review it and come back with comments, or decide how you wanna proceed. I don't know that you necessarily need to get into the meat of it tonight, cause that really wasn't the objective of, it was making sure you all wanted to proceed with this before we spent any more time working on it or reviewing it.
Right.
I will say I do like this because I think, especially calling into account the actual, like, open meeting law and other, like, statutes that I feel like, people have to understand that you're not just volunteering for a committee and, like, you're not bound by the state law as well. And so I think that this at least says, like, I understand that what I'm doing is, bound by all of this, I think is important. I know we have to go through the ethics training, but anyway.
Was it significantly different than the MI or MAII or whatever it was?
No, it's not.
No, so this is pretty much the new Maya version. They added the last section on public comment, section 4, guidelines for individuals speaking at public meetings based on the SJC decision. But for the most part, everything else was the same as what came before you last year.
Okay.
Hector added the current policies, the personnel policies that we have in place so that they're listed in here. And it was removed, and to be honest, I don't recall if you removed it. I know I have the other one in here, or if it was Maya. My only concern would be there's no process for if someone is violating the policy. It doesn't address that. So it would just be meeting with, I think the last one had a consultation with the town administrator leading up to a potential meeting with their appointing authority in accordance with the open meeting law. So that would be the only recourse, would be if they're violating it, it's an open meeting law.
Process on the charter, isn't there?
There is, which still follows just the open meeting law. So a duly noticed meeting before their appointing authority, which means if there's a violation, it just comes right to you all.
Right. And if it's
But yeah,
elected,
it's-
if it's elected, it's a recall.
Yes.
So
Well,
what's,
we-
what,
This wouldn't apply to elected. We
Yeah,
could
this
put it
won't.
out, but they don't necessarily
Don't
need
have
to
to
follow it or sign it or do anything.
It's just the appointed ones.
And
It would
The-
just be applicable to the appointed boards that we appoint.
the modification I made did say elected officials, all elected officials are encouraged to
Right, some of that.
comply with this.
Well, I'm ready to go for, to continue working on it.
yeah, me too.
Alright, make it.
Make
That motion.
So I move that the board proceed with working on the, or wait, which one am I doing?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
first
I
one.
move that the board proceed with working on the draft code of conduct policy.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous, thank you.
So shall I schedule this for a more further discussion on the actual policy at the September 26th meeting as well?
Do we have time for it?
We don't have much on that agenda yet.
Oh,
Now we just added some stuff, but
Perfect.
Yep,
I think.
perfect. September 26th.
Will the draft go in the packet?
Yes.
Great.
The draft that's in your current packet? Yes, it will go in your packet again. Do you want anything else in the packet with that? Do you want me to include so I did include the actual Maya policy. Do you want to see that as well? And then see the change, so you'll see the edited one
And the Maya one.
and the Maya one. Do you want to see both of them?
It's fine.
I think it'd be helpful, because I think that if we're asking for, board.
Well, I like the fact that it was mirrored much of
Right,
the
right.
Maya one.
That it just wasn't grabbed out of thin air.
Right, so and it's Maya and it's MMA. MMA is the one who endorses it. I mean, they're
Okay,
sort of the
that's
same
great.
company.
Right.
But Maya does it as the insurance side and risk management, and MMA endorses it. Got it?
I like it.
Excuse me.
Perfect. Minutes? Comments on our
They look
lovely minutes? Our minute taker?
They were good.
Thank you. They were good.
They
I
were
know,
good.
I know. Things get long.
Wow, these were long minutes.
Or was fake snoring.
Oh.
Do we,
Alright,
do we see any errors that need to repair in the minutes?
no.
No, but can I just add a quick comment? I just wanna say, I went to Ty and Julie Morancy's house to bring them all of their
Oh,
stuff.
nice.
The chief came with, and actually my niece was here with me that day, so she came too. They were very appreciative, they were very overwhelmed. Julie was the only one home, but they were very overwhelmed with all of the stuff that we gave them. It was, she got a little teary-eyed, it was very sweet, so I just wanted to let the board know
I saw them
that.
posting
That's
the
lovely.
Yeah,
Facebook posting maybe.
Yes.
of the chief, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
with
Yeah.
it was nice.
It was really sweet, it was really nice, so
Nice.
just let you know, they had all that.
Great. Thank you. We'll take a motion on the minutes.
I move to accept the meeting minutes of August 8th, 2023, meeting as drafted.
Second.
Do I have to abstain because I wasn't here?
No.
If you read the minutes and understand
I
them,
watched the
Did
meeting
you watch
and
them?
it,
yeah, then you can vote on.
yeah, no, I hosted.
Good for you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous.
Had a sleepless night.
From watching the meeting?
No, it helped me go to sleep.
Alright,
So it was one way or the other. Correspondence, anybody
right, there's
have
more
anything
stuff
to
here.
say about correspondence tonight?
no.
Cause I know most of it anyway, it's in the contract.
Any last motions?
I did have one quick question.
Any last motions?
Now that I said that. I know, I'm sorry, just a quick question about that citizens petition. Will the filers of the citizens petition be notified of what's gonna happen, or is it just gonna happen?
Well, I mean,
Hopefully someone's gonna have to stand up on town meeting.
yes, so
floor
they'll
for
be
it.
notified to participate in the moderator's discussion of town meeting proceedings if they plan to make any sort of discussion or presentation.
Okay.
But I mean, they were told that is, and I assume that the clerk's office communicated that their signatures were certified, so.
Okay.
But yes, I asked the town clerk's office for contact information for the petitioner, to just put him on the list of the moderator's meeting.
But do they understand that because they did not propose any substantial bylaw change or
That it's an
additions,
unlisted
that there's no particular action that's gonna happen?
So yes and no, they were advised that apparently ahead of time, and when they were shown what an actual bylaw was, they were like, well, I'm not doing that. So,
Okay.
we can't tell them what to write, so the
Right.
town clerk advised them and said, this doesn't really do anything, and that's what they chose to submit, so.
I think it's great that people are petitioning and getting involved.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I think unfortunately there's been some misinformation on Facebook and social media about the process.
I'm shocked.
Um,
How did that happen and who's responsible? I wanna
It's
know
on the
now.
internet, it's correct.
And I think people think they can go back and, change the bylaw for the current applicant, and so I think there's some misinformation out there, and I applaud them, they got a ton of signatures. I
These
think,
petitioners knew that they could not change the existing applicants.
oh, good, okay.
I made sure of that.
Okay, yeah, so, I think it was the intention, from my understanding, the planning board wanted to look into this anyways. It's just, and I guess it's been on their radar, but they didn't have, with everything that was going on for Lower Village, it just didn't get done,
Right.
so.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
Good night.
Bye, goodbye.